Okay, so I posted earlier that this was going to be at 8 p.m., but the timing just worked out to do it a little early, so I went ahead, fired it up. So welcome to another episode of Full Circle. This is our fifth and final episode on theme forces. I wanted to get this out before the holiday in case I'm too busy, which is entirely likely. Not that I have a ton of stuff, but you know, enough that it might impede. Some weird hair lately on stream. Anyways, I'm your host, Chad. Cheddar came in on everything, and today we are going to talk about the Wild Hunt. Real quick news update. This isn't really big enough for its own episode. There was an insider posted today talking about the CID schedule for next year, and basically it goes sort of as we expected. First bit of the year, I guess. We're going to be looking at Legion's Blighted Ogre theme right at sometime in January. Following that is going to be the Khador Manowar theme. After that is when Crucible Guard is going to hit. So I'd expect sort of that's January, February, March, roughly. And then so that's going to pretty much take us through the releases that are going to happen up into summer. And then after that will be there's going to be some we'll be seeing Protected Exemplars, the Circle Tharn theme that we've basically known is coming, and Merc Pirates. So these couple of years definitely pretty heavy on the amount of pirates in the game that they are adding. We got there's 3 theme forces of Crix Pirates, and we're getting Merc Pirates. I half expect some Troll Pirates not too far after that. I mean, I guess they are privateer press after all. But anyways, so that's exciting. We know the Circle Tharn theme is coming. That's about on the schedule I was expecting. I think, you know, our CID might happen. Let's see the Crucible one will be a little bit longer. I think Trenchers were in CID prior to Lock and Load. So we could be looking at June. It could be July. I think that's about when, or August. It's going to be sometime in the summer, I would say, that we go on CID. I don't know if the order I don't know if the order of those 3 themes is going to, like, I don't know if the order in the article is how they'll go. If it'll go Protectorate, Circle, Mercs. It could go, you know, I don't really know. It would just be speculation at this point. So anyways, I just want to throw that news out there. Obviously, it's going to be a little ways before we're looking at any new Circle releases, unless, of course, there are some, like Elias Gade, Kralix type releases where it's just like this one-off solo that was obviously kind of sort of planned for Company of Iron. My guess, however, though, is that if they have those pieces, they're probably just going to hold on to them for 12 factions of Christmas, but, you know, who knows, or 13 or whatever it'll be next year. So so for now, World White, that'll be a little bit for the Tharn stuff, but when it gets here, it should be pretty exciting. So anyways, without further ado, let us talk about what this episode's actually about, which is the 5th and final, for now, anyway, theme force for Circle. So this is the Wild Hunt, and just to break this down like I have for every other episode, I'm going to read through the themes, so the fluff, the composition, the benefits. We'll talk a little bit high level about the theme. Talk about some strengths, weaknesses, etc. Then I'll talk about what warlocks could or could not play it, and maybe some interesting approaches that they may or may not have to it. And then from there, if there's some time at the end, we'll go into like wish listing / rampant speculation type stuff. So anyways, the Wild Hunt. When war requires speed, cunning, and brutality, the Wild Hunt is gathered to spill the enemy's blood. If the end is dire, many villagers of Wolfsworn are drawn together in these great hunting parties. A Wild Hunt draws upon its warriors' hunting skills and their knowledge of the land to launch lethal ambushes against enemy columns marching through the wilderness. The warriors of a Wild Hunt rely on their mobility to defeat technologically superior foes. They bleed the enemy with quick strikes, chasing down all who break ranks to offer them as a sacrifice to the primal powers of the Devourer Worm. Alright. Composition rules. All Circle Warlocks. Non-character War Beasts, Wolf-Sworn models / units, Shifting Stone units, Gallows Grove solos, and Warwolf solos. The benefits. As always, this army can include 1 minion solo and 1 minion unit that will work for Circle. These models can be included even if they have the Partisan Circle special rule. Minion units in this army can include attachments. For every full 20 points of Wolfsworn models / units in this army, you can add 1 small or medium-based Circle solo or 1 Wolfsworn command attachment to the army free of cost. Free models do not count toward the total point value of Wolfsworn models / units in the army when calculating this bonus. Circle Warbeasts in this army gain Tracker. And Tracker states a model with Tracker ignores forest when determining line of sight when declaring a charge. And finally, 1 Wolves of Orboros unit in this army gains Ambush. And then just to tell you what Ambush is, you can choose to not deploy a unit with Ambush at the start of the game. If it is not deployed normally, you can put it into play at the end of any of your control phases after your first turn. When you do, choose any table edge except the back of your opponent's deployment zone. Place all models in the unit with Ambush in formation completely within 3 inches of the chosen table edge. Okay, so let's just talk about the benefits and whatnot first. So no limitation on Circle Warlocks here. We get the same minion inclusions that we pretty much get everywhere. I think most themes the benefit is listed that way, unless a few War Machine themes I think lack it because they were trying to avoid some pretty powerful interactions with some of the character solos and units. So the benefits. First of all, obviously this is the theme you're bringing if you were going to be bringing Wolfsworn. So Wolfsworn include presently the Wolves of Orboros, the Reeves of Orboros, the Warpborn Skinwalkers, the Reeve Hunter solo, Wolflord Morag. I feel like I'm forgetting one thing, but I think that's it. I think it's just those models. Obviously, Grail's Wolfsworn, it includes Warwolf solos as then they're separate. So, wow, I totally feels like I'm forgetting something, but I do think chat got me. The Death Wolves. The Death Wolves are the final character unit. So I'm so used to thinking of them in the Devourer's Host that I've sort of blanked. So I believe those are the only units. Obviously, relatively sparse on solos as well. So that's what you can take. The points right now are a little awkward for this theme actually because it's 20 points, but Skinwalkers are 19 with their attachment. Reeves are 16 with their attachment. Wolves of Orboros are 15 with their attachment. And so you're kind of trying to get like 40 to 60 points to work, and it's sometimes really awkward. Warwolves are only 2 points and are not technically Wolfsworn models, I presume because they didn't want the Sikkim to trigger, or they didn't want a Warwolf to trigger Sikkim for the other Warwolves. Personally, I wish they... I think they could probably change that benefit because I think we'll talk about it when we get to Grail, but I don't think that one triggering Sikkim on the other is really that big of a deal. I also don't think them benefiting from Veteran Leader from Wolflord Morag is that big of a deal, and I think them benefiting from Tactician from Grail would just be a good to have. But be that as it may, they don't have that benefit right now. So you know, free points is sort of the obvious benefit. So that's one place to look. Chat is sharing. You can max Skinwalkers, Wolves of Orboros, do a minion to Reeves, and you with UAs, and you'll get 40 points, and that'll give you 2 of the command attachments for free. So that's good to know. Certainly could be one way to go. But anyway, with that in mind, so the other benefits of the theme, the big benefit to me is the Wolves of Orboros unit gaining ambush. Circle doesn't actually have it, which feels odd. Like, Circle doesn't have an in-faction ambush unit, and it really feels like we kind of should, because it feels very, the ambush as a rule feels very that like guerrilla tactics type thing. So a Wolves of Orboros unit gaining ambush here is pretty cool. And I think it's a big consideration when playing this theme, right? If you want to bring something with it. So I've been talking a lot with SR 2017 and the ability to like flank your opponent and get to get wider on the table. We've never had a set of scenarios where it's been more beneficial than now to be able to go wide on the table. And Wolves of Orboros are definitely one of those units when you can give them flank, that's going to be good. They're not the most threatening melee unit by any means, and they're not the most survivable melee unit by any means, so ambush really helps them with that latter. And but they do hit hard enough and threat far enough that they're going to be a solid include, just for this benefit, really. I think you can really change up how a list is playing with a benefit like that. Skinwalkers, I think... so if you've noticed, if you went back through all my other episodes, I have actually not talked yet about Wolves of Orboros. I've not talked about Skinwalkers, and I think that's about it. And part of the reason is I just frankly I've not been playing them. I think they're good. I think they're different in a lot of ways. So Skinwalkers are not the fastest unit we have. In fact, they're one of our slowest units. But they're also, in theory, one of our most durable units, and they're technically the hardest hitting. With the attachment, they get gang, taking them up to power and strength 14, which puts them 1 higher than Ravagers get, puts them higher than, if you sort of like do the math of an additional die from the Weapon Master of the Wolf Riders. They're probably hitting a little harder than that, but they don't have a high volume of attacks or anything. So they're definitely this like very defensive sort of like, when I get to you, it's going to hurt. They have 8 wounds still. They heal themselves. Like, it sort of Circles, the regeneration is sort of, I guess, Circle's way of having a tanky unit. And the mini feat that they have is sort of interesting. Being able to turn off spells and orders within 3 inches. I haven't really gotten to try it. We'll talk about it with one Warlock in particular that I think it's decent with when we get there. But yeah, it's very interesting. Reeves of Orboros I've talked about before. I think they are fantastic when they're fantastic. They just getting 2 shots even at POW 8 I think is pretty solid. I think they're the Werewolf interaction with all of this I think is really strong. The Death Wolves don't get corpses here, but I do think they're decent in the right place. Yeah, so that's the units. And then your Warbeast getting Tracker is sort of an interesting situation / problem. So you often want to bring heavy Warbeasts as your sort of damage dealers. Like I said, Skinwalkers kind of can, Wolves kind of can, Reeves and Werewolves kind of can. There's a lot of things that sort of can crack armor, but a lot of times if you're like, I want to make sure I can seriously crack armor, you're looking at heavy Warbeasts. And Tracker's a cool benefit, right? So now I can go through this forest without, and draw line of sight for my charges. So it's, with the heavier terrain situation, any other time you can kind of gain that can be really cool. It gets problematic though when what you want to bring is, this theme is one of the themes that does allow you to bring both, either Wolves or Living Beasts. With that in mind, you are sort of pushed in the direction of the Living Beasts because of your lack depending on what you're trying to do, but because of the lack of being able to take the Stone Shaper, the Blackclad Stone Shaper, which buffs their damage, you're a little bit sort of pushed in the direction of Living Beast, because you can still bring Primal. Then the problem is if you want to bring Living Heavy War Beasts, most of them don't have Pathfinder. So it's great and all that you can draw line of sight through this forest, but your Feral's not charging through it. None of the Satyrs are charging through it. If the Pureblood charges through it, he has to Warp Ghostly, which is going to be a significant hit to his damage output. Obviously, Warpwolf Stalkers are just fine. The Wolves are all Pathfinders, so that they're just fine, but they're a little slower, so the benefit is going to be similarly adjusted in its relevance. So that's kind of where that benefit is. I'd really like to see more of our heavies get Pathfinder, or an option to gain Pathfinder, or things like that. I think that would really help that benefit do a lot more work. But we'll see. I think it's a really good benefit. I just wish we could more easily take advantage of it. So we'll see if that's something we gain at some point. Obviously, don't hold out soon on any changes, but just realize with that particular benefit, before you're starting to try to take advantage of it, make sure you can actually take advantage of it, or that you know when and how you will take advantage of it. Okay, so yeah, with that in mind, this is, like I said, this is the Wolfsworn theme, so things that synergize with them is what we're going to be focusing on as we go caster by caster. And yeah, battle group wise, it kind of gets things out of the way that we wanted to. So without further ado, we're just going to work our way through the casters now. So Baldur the Stonecleaver, Baldur 1. So I've said this phrasing with most of the casters, but I think Baldur 1 is a good all-around warlock, and as such is going to be potentially good in this theme. Stone Skin on Skinwalkers can be really good. It takes their armor from 16 to 18 up to 20 with Unyielding. It does reduce their speed, and they're already kind of slow, but you get the armor and you get the melee damage. So if you can get the right counter punch with them, I think is really what you're looking for, then that could be pretty strong. The tracker benefit with the forest, obviously pretty strong. The rapid growth forest, which can also trigger Prowl from the Death Wolves, which is nice. They get the damage output as well. His feat is just generically good. So I would say Baldur the Stonecleaver can definitely play in this theme. I don't know that he brings anything like super that I haven't mentioned already, super specific for it, but I think he's a decent all-around caster, and thus decent here. Baldur 2, Baldur the Stone Soul. I lean towards saying not really what you're looking for. I think there's probably some cute benefits with bringing like 1 or 2 units of Skinwalkers and making them armor, using your feet to make them armor 19 or 20, right, 19, yeah, or 21 in melee. But I don't know if that's worth sort of like deviating from the normal Baldur plan. I think he synergizes probably best in Bones still. If somebody tries it, I'd love to hear if there's any game there, but that's kind of all I really see. I suppose the ambushing Wolves of Orboros with him could sort of help, because he doesn't really like he has a hard time spreading out on the table. But largely I think he would be a more niche approach, if any, for this theme. So Bradigus Thorol, the Rune Carver. Technically can play in it because he can bring Wolves. He can't bring Blackclad Stone Shapers, and I think Bones is... I think Bradigus is almost a solo Bones Warlock, personally, so I don't think there's anything in this theme that's going to have me deviate from that. Grail the Farstrider. So he's our one soul Wolfsworn Warlock, and he definitely is strong to play in this theme. With Wolford Morag and Death March and Storm Rager, he can get some incredibly accurate troops, some of the most accurate troops in the game, frankly. when you consider that Skinwalkers go up to mat 8 with Gang, they go to mat 10 with Death March, and then they can go up to mat 11 with Wolflord Morag. That's really good. Wolves of Orboros on the charge already get powerful charge, so they go up to mat 8, up to 10 with Death March if you need, up to 11 with Wolflord Morag. They can CMA and go even higher if they need to. You have Grail, who's mat 7. He can go up to mat 9 with Storm Rager, mat 10 with access to Morag within his command. Morag himself is very accurate. He's Cav model. He's mat 8. The Death Wolves are all mat 7. Again, Death March can be applied. Or Storm Rager on like Skull or Tala would not be bad. And then he does bring a little bit of threat extension in Gallows. His feet is more threat range extension potentially, as well as the melee attacks can help infantry move more. Yeah. So I really think that Wolflord, that Grail is sort of an obviously strong option for this theme, which I'm glad to see. I think that's a really good synergy. Tactician, I mean, Grail can play Devourer's Host. We talked about that a little bit back. But Tactician for Wolfsworn also brings some pretty interesting stuff. And then I lost my train of thought. The thing with the Tactician can really let you sort of like use Morag and Grail to kind of like go up, hit, and run back, and then like fill the void with other infantry, which I think can create some very interesting scenarios for you. I think you can get more attacks on some things that you otherwise might not be able to, things like that. So I really, really like Grail in this theme. If I started like seriously playing Grail, I would probably start here, see what I can do. And then go from there, see what he's strong into, what he's not. So Grail, definitely very strong. All right, then let's go Kaya the Wildborn, Kaya 1. I'm not seeing it. Occultation's decent on some units, but I think the other themes we've talked about, her being good in, she's probably better in. I don't see her bringing enough to this one to really warrant or worrying about it. Kai the Moonhunter and Laris. Again, not feeling it here. I think she wants to play pretty exclusively in the Wild Hunt. Or, I'm sorry, this is the Wild Hunt. In Call of the Wild. And yeah, I don't think I would go with this theme here. There might be something again, but not personally feeling it. Kai the Wildheart, Kai 3. I know a few people did play her in that theme. They liked the tracker benefit, and the ambushing wolves of Orboros were helping their game plan. So it's interesting, but I don't think it's better than going Call of the Wild, personally. So that is what it is. Chromac 1, Chromac the Ravenous. Some people have had success playing him with Skinwalkers in this theme. Tracker's a pretty interesting benefit for him. Skinwalkers like the armor buff. Personally, not really what I would probably do. So I would say it works, so it's worth trying if you like the theme and want to try it out. I think slower melee units, especially ones with medium bases that are sort of getting in the way of where your battle group's going to go, can be problematic, but it might just be another, a different stylistic approach to how to play him. Chromac 2, the Chromac Champion of the Worm. You could play him. I don't think there's enough obvious synergies with him to choose to do so over, say, Grail for you. Obviously, Carnage can give you +2 to hit, but unless the feat changes to be like infantry at some point as well, then I'm not seeing it. To go back, I didn't mention this. Reeves of Orboros, I'm thinking Skinwalkers a lot for some reason. Reeves of Orboros with Chromac 1 are definitely a good way to trigger Warpath. Thank you, Jacob. I suppose Woldbeards would be too. I personally feel like Call of the Wild is probably still closer to the home Chromac one wants, but I really think you could give him a go in this, especially now that I'm remembering that he can take the other options. Reeves specifically are a great option with him. You could do like Reeves Skinwalkers, get your arm bonus in one place and your Warpath triggers from another. So another strong place to consider him. I think you're going to find that game plan is a little stronger with some of these other ones, but certainly consideration. Anyways, to go back forward, Chromac 2, not seeing it as much here. I think that's okay. Kruger the Stormwrath. This is an interesting one. Like, Reeves are actually pretty survivable when they can dig in and then get +3 defense, of course. As long as, because they're not getting blast damage, their defense goes up to, let's see, like 20. So you're not really shooting them, at least for a turn. Werewolves become certainly interesting. Moving clouds means that they don't have as many things causing their bows problem, but they're largely not going to crack that much armor with him, and he doesn't have any way to help that. You could try to do like Skinwalkers and things like that, you know. But I think he'll play a little bit better in like Devourer's Host if that's your game plan. Pardon me. Kruger the Stormlord, Kruger 2. I think if you're a good Kruger 2 player, you can play him a lot of different ways, so I think this is one viable way. If you like playing the Woldweird Pureblood combo, there might be something here. He can obviously do a lot to keep squishy units safe by deviating the blast damage or making the shots come up short in the first place. You know, his feet is also really good for stuff, anything that shoots, so Reeves are a thing that shoots. Are pretty good with his feet because they're going to try to like close to engage and you're going to feet and push them away and then you can go back to shooting, generally speaking. In general, I personally think that Kruger 2 would be better in like Bones, Call, Bones, Call, or Secret Masters. Personally, I think is where he would be better. But I think he's a pretty general caster in sort of. He's a caster that can do a lot of things. Let's go with that. So it might be strong. Mosar, the Desert Walker. So Mosar is a very interesting one. This is definitely a theme that I would look into. I think the Ambushing Wolves of Orboros are doubly good because they can be a Sands of Fate target as well as just being something that can come off of the side and do a lot of work. His spells are all solid for this theme. Crystal Shadows is good. He usually can blink into a spot with Sands of Fate and use a Doppler Bark Animus that gives up paralysis. Their Wolves of Orboros are the cheapest models to be using that ability on, so I think that's good. Yeah, so you know, I think there's definitely something there. Somebody's commenting that they play a list that is similar to this. I think there's something there. Mosar is still, to me, a very difficult caster to sort of nail down because I think he kind of wants a sizable... The thing here is I think he does want a decently sizable battle group. So if you go too hard on the infantry, you're going to be weaker there, and you know there's always that yo-yo. But I think this is a theme that he would be very good with. I don't necessarily... I don't know exactly what your unit loadout looks like. The Wolves of Orboros are the thing with him that I'm really being drawn towards. So, you know, whether it's... This might even be one of those times where you consider playing like 3 Wolves of Orboros and 3 Werewolves. And then filling up your battle group or things like that. It could be pretty good. So, yeah. But I do think Mosar can play in this. I think you're going to have to give him reps. I think you're going to have to really think about what it is that he's doing. Okay. Next we go to Morvana the Autumn Blade. So Morvana, both Morvanas, and this is the first, are certainly infantry casters. I think being able to put regrowth on a unit of wolves or Reeves could potentially be something that can, like, over the course of the game, sway your attrition advantage. Being able to play all of the different war beasts, I think, is good for her because I can see wolves being good with her. I can see living being good with her. The feet is interesting. The werewolves like it because they ignore the forest anyways. The war beasts like it, like your stalker or your wolds that have Pathfinder are going to like her feet because they have tracker to see through the forests. The ambushing wolves of Orboros unit could be pretty handy to sort of, if only to bottle things in toward the middle where they're more clumped up, and Eruption of Life and her feet is going to just get more value. Trying to think. She could bring Brenos in the theme, which is another beast that does have Pathfinder, so it's relevant, but she doesn't have great ways to keep him alive. Her armor buff is still good on Skinwalkers. That was kind of what I always played it on in Mark II when I played her, and I don't think it's stopped being good on them. Anyways, so that's Morvana 1. I think her battle group is going to be adjusted based on what else you need the list to be able to do. So, Morvana 2, Morvana the Dawn Shadow. Another good place for her, actually. One of the interesting interactions, so I mentioned the mini feat from the Skinwalkers earlier, but one of the interesting things is if that command attachment gets killed, you can always bring him back, and then you still have access to the mini feat. Now, you don't get 2. If you use it and he comes back, it's still considered used. But if he does get killed, you can like feat and sort of like you can manipulate the board state so that you can place him like 3 inches of their caster and totally screw them up. And there could be some game there. Any of those sort of disruption, like make your opponent have to kill things in a certain order type things, can be very incredible. She likes Death Wolves because Fog of War keeps them stealthy. Being able to reroll ranged attacks like on the Reeves is good. Carnivore on either of the melee units is going to be really good to heal her, as well as be pretty accurate with their attacks, similar to Grail. She also brings somebody who hits pretty hard as a Warlock when she needs to. Fog of War, which is good for obviously everybody. Overall, it's a pretty solid option to go. You're going to be a little higher on the attrition side of things, and probably a little slower on the other aspects of trying to win. Tanith the Feral Song. I actually, sometimes when I look at Wolfsword, I'm like, I really think they go with Grail, and then I'm like, this list would just be better with Tanith. Part of the reason is Affliction is fantastic with Reeves of Orboros. You can go up to Rat 7 even before you aim, Rat 9 if you do. You really don't have to combine a lot of times, and the models, because the models are suffering the -2 defense, and then you do an auto point, and so they get 22 shots off, regardless of what your opponent's board space is, if you can make sure that you're in range of everything you want to shoot, and that can be incredibly good. You can, if you have 2 units, you can drop a heavy at range just by putting Affliction on it and shooting it. You might also just be able to cripple a system by doing 22 damage to it with your 1 unit. There's also a good interaction if you bring the UA. You can CRA in a melee, and that also means you put Scything Touch on a Werewolf, do a full unit CRA on something, do a POW 20 or 21. Trigger Sick'em, which is going to bring the Werewolf in, and if you put Scything Touch on one of the Werewolves when you charge in with it, which it can't help to do, I believe, when you charge in with it, wow, I totally just had a moment where I blanked on where I was going with things. That's awkward. Oh, you charge in with the Werewolf with Scything Touch, and then your second CRA, which is still pretty likely to hit and can shoot in melee because of the special rule they have, War Tempered, I think. You can get another POW 21, you do all your Sick'ems, you can kind of drop a heavy that way as well. So some pretty good interactions. I think Skinwalkers really love the Scything Touch benefit because it sort of takes them up to that POW 16 land, and I think charges at that are going to be really good. She likes a mixed battle group potentially. I've been looking more at the living battle group because it lets me bring Loki, and I think Loki is fantastic. I think Loki plays, I haven't tested this yet, but I think Loki would play well with Skinwalkers because they don't have the longest threat, but they do hit decently hard. So you put Scything Touch on Loki, he throws out the hook, he brings him in, and he's debuffing their armor by 2, so now you got POW 16 charges on Skinwalkers coming in. It's good stuff. Am I forgetting something? Tanith. I feel like I'm missing a spell. Maybe not. And then being able to use her battle group as arc nodes for her feature, and you can also get Scything Touch out somewhere potentially where it's going to benefit that unit of Wolves Orboros that's coming down on the side. So overall, I'm a fan of it here with Tanith. I think everything but survivability, she sort of has like an answer for them, or like a piece of the puzzle. And so it's great. Una the Sky Hunter. Probably not. I mean, Hand of Fate is great on anything, of course. And she's not stopped from winning her Scar Spells, but the Scar Spells already have Tracker, so that's kind of redundant. You don't really care if your Gorex has Tracker because it's never going to come up. She's not going to really be charging. So, to jump back, yeah, Tanith and Reeves working well with a Moonhound, I think is great. I really like the Moonhound as, it's my favorite arc node. Because it's cheap, it's decently fast, it has a relevant animus for her and the Reeves. You certainly aren't going to feel as bad if it gets thrown away as your arc node. And in a pinch, it hits okay. If you put +5 damage on it, it does okay. So I really like it for that. Thank you. I'm just going to say Thomas, so I don't butcher your Polish name. Also, man, it must be really late in Poland. Anyways, oh, and yeah, the additional bonus to hit is certainly not to be forgotten. I mean, even with Affliction, that's +4 to hit with range attacks, and then, excuse me, you could potentially add Shadowbind to that. So most of the time, if you can get a +7 to hit a ranged attack, you're gonna hit it. You know what I mean? So definitely good there. Thank you for the tip there. On Una, I don't really see it. Like I said, Hand of Fate is really good. Reeves would be okay with it. I think if their power was like 10 or 12, it would be fantastic, but it's not. So it's okay. She can bring her battle group if she wants, but Tracker's not going to benefit it any. She could do like Skinwalkers or Wolves, I suppose. I mostly it's just that I think she's going to do more for the other themes. I think you could do it. I think if you wanted to, you could make it work. But I think if you wanted to do that, I think Tanith is going to be better than Una in this case, and Una is going to be better doing a few other things. Just my 2 cents. And then the final one is Wormwood. And actually, the more and more I've thought about Wormwood, the more I think he actually would be fantastic in this theme. Curse of Shadows, I didn't mention this, our chat mentioned it, but so Curse of Shadows makes the Wolves of Orboros hit really hard. But another thing that it does is really makes those the Werewolves hit really hard. So this Tanith can do this as well. But really anybody who can easily apply a debuff style +2 damage, because these are solos. So Scything Touch and Curse of Shadows are, I think, the only ones we're going to have. Theoretically, you could, if it's a Warjack, you could throw Rust on there from Hot Chuck. But so here, Curse of Shadows, and I bring up Wormwood specifically because I think he does a lot to like keep his army safe. And the forest is something the werewolves can ignore. He likes Wolves of Orboros for cheap souls when he needs them, and the ambushing is also kind of clever. I think I saw a list. I think I saw a list from a German event where somebody was playing 3 full units of Wolves of Orboros and a full unit of Reeves, and I think they still got the werewolves in there. So I'm actually really interested to see how that played. I don't even think I have all 3 of my units of Wolves of Orboros like assembled. And I'm pretty sure if I ask my wife to paint 36 Wolves of Orboros, that I may just get like punched in the face. But those things notwithstanding, I really would like to know how that list did, because I think that's a really interesting way to play Wormwood. He actually, like, there's been a lot of play with him playing small battle groups, and I think there's some good stuff there. But really, he wants to be getting souls all the time, and a lot of his spells, you know, Hellmouth does delete infantry pretty well and gives you that push-pull thing that you want with your heavies. But like Curse of Shadows, and then using Stranglehold to keep hard targets where you want them until your infantry get to them, are very strong. Like being able to get souls out there that are going to be killed and moved around, I think is a really like strong piece with him that is just not, that shouldn't be dismissed. It's obviously a little harder with like his feet being smaller now, but I think his feet, the terrain, his spell, I think you can combine it all and get a really compelling build. Warwolves though were the thing I was mentioning, and the nice thing with them is you can put any Wolfsworn triggers it, and which I maybe haven't mentioned, but if you can get a curse on a model, you can get that POW 20. You can get 2 POW 21 CRAs from your Reeves that are extremely accurate because you're doing the full unit, and then you can throw in your 3 Warwolves to charge that model, and possibly even get, if you positioned well, or if it worked out that you could position this well, you can also get their melee attacks. So now you're talking, you hit them with 2 POW 21s effectively, then you hit them with the first charge. These are all boosted to hit on the Sickums. They're boosted to hit on the Sickums. The first one is going to charge in at POW 13. The next two are going to charge in at POW 15. This is all boosted because they're charges. And then you're going to get 3 additional POW 15s if like I said, you've positioned so that you can do that. I think it's a really I played it super early in Mark 3 before some of the builds kind of started coming out, and I did have success with it. Basically, where I was able to sort of do that technique to take a heavy off the table. And usually worst case scenario, you're sort of trading those 3 solos because they're pretty easy to kill. But with him, you might be able to keep them alive and like do it again. Where Tanith has is a lot harder for her to do something like that with them. So I think they're a pretty natural piece there. And, you know, being able to bring those souls is nice. Tracker can help with your order of activations. If you bring like a Stalker, like Stalker Gorex package maybe. One thing I didn't mention, I sort of, the Mormon ones are last Warlock, but I want to go back to talking about the theme as a whole. I didn't mention minions to be sort of thinking about, and I think in this case Lanissa Rissel is going to be a minion that might be pretty key to a lot of your plans, because she can give you this theme along with Devourer's Host is... yeah, it's only those 2. Neither of those themes have access to Hunter's Mark, and it's one of our like hallmark threat range extensions, and it works on infantry as well. Something a lot of people don't really think about. And be able to get things like your Skinwalkers moving a little faster, your Wolves of Orboros coming off that flank a little harder, your Warwolves getting a little deeper. All of these things can be really key. So it's definitely something you're going to want to keep in mind with the theme. I think as far as unit. Oh, that's a good point. Eilish Garrity. So if you're focused a little more on the Reeves, Lanissa may not be your best bet, but Eilish's Puppet Master is something that definitely, so, you know, if you're like doing that 20-man CRA, or 20-man, full POW 21, POW 19 CRA that I've talked about, the last thing you want to do, because the only way you're going to miss it is if you Snake Eyes, so throwing Puppet Master on there can prevent that. It can also just sort of make your rolls average out, which is always good. Eilish is a model I've not played enough with yet, and I really need to, because I think he's really stylish, A, and B, I think he's really good. And he's definitely something, if this is going to be your list into an infantry, like a debuff caster, you're going to want to consider Eilish for that reason, anyways. Rustbomb from Hutchuck plus more ambush is definitely something to consider. He also has a knockdown attack, so coming off the flank, he gets a knockdown. Your wolves also come off the flank or off the ambush and get the knockdown, or he gets a knockdown and then the Reeves just have at it. Also good. What other solos? The Misspeaker could be pretty relevant with Eyeless Sight now. Although that only will help you see through clouds, it will not help you ignore stealth, because only the lead model, it'll only help the lead model out with that. Yeah, the Lesser Warlocks always have a place. Somebody mentioned that in the chat. Lesser Warlocks always have a place. Each of them do... Oh, there's a question. Do Lesser Warlock beasts get Tracker? I believe... That's a great question. I've not even thought to check. Circle War. I'm looking at the wrong theme. No, Circle War Beasts. I didn't really expect that they wouldn't they would let that go, but yeah, chat caught up to that. So those are just a few minions. I think there's a lot of different minion options that are good. If enemy clouds are a problem and you're not playing Grail, Alinus and Adrea are a unit to certainly take note of. Plus the heal is useful for things like Skinwalkers, as well as your beasts and your caster and stuff. Let me think. You know, Bone Grinders are always useful for the longer spell. So the general things are going to be good. In that Wormwood list with all of the dudes, you may want to consider bringing in Ogre and Boker and Swamp Shamblers, just because you're going to have enough guys dying to give you souls, and then you get corpses. Morvana, same thing. Yeah, when the new Spirit Cauldron comes out, I think if you have Death Wolves, that you might want to consider it. It might start getting to be a little expensive then, because now you're talking about adding a 5-point unit to help your 9-point unit get corpses, but it's probably worth testing. And it's not like that unit doesn't do stuff on its own too, so certainly worth testing in that regard. And then to sort of roll into this one's actually going a little faster, probably because I haven't been playing with this as much. Also, it just doesn't have as many options. I think a lot of people looked at this theme and thought this would actually be our first theme to get a unit for, or sorry, like a theme release for, a la the Tharn theme we know is coming. Because there's actually not that many options here. So I think there's a lot of like potential for this theme to get some pretty cool direction. I do like that things were retyped as Wolfsworn, so like Reeves and Wolves. And all these things trigger the Sikkim now on Werewolves, not just Reefs. I haven't really mentioned the Reeve Hunter. It's a really interesting solo, and it can kind of hit hard, but it also kind of doesn't do a ton either. It's in this very weird place. And it's really interesting because it's a solo that was, at the launch of Mark III, was like, people looked at it and all the rules it had, and they're like, oh my god, this thing's amazing. And it's like not really amounted to anything, which is, it's just bizarre, really. It is, they are solos I would certainly consider including with Tanith, because they have Sprint and they're Power 11 Weapon Masters on the charge. And as a result, they, with Siding Touch, they can add some pretty hard hitting in there as well. So there's a couple questions in here that one person asked, and I'm going to try to hit those up really quick. One of them was, Legion can get Hellmouths for free, Ret can get their Dragoon, their 7-point Dragoon for free. Would it really be that broken for us to get Morag for free? I don't think so. I also don't think, this is a different episode, I don't think it would be broken for us to get the Wolf Rider Champion for free and Devour Sos. I don't think it would be that broken to get Morag for free in this theme. There's sort of a two-tiered problem with it, though, and that problem is that I think 7 points is sort of like the top level for the amount of free points they give out anywhere. I think technically there's an 8-point light Warjack in Crix, but you have to have 30 points of other Warjacks to get it, and even then, like, some of the cheaper, like the 7-point option might be superior. So, like, it's sort of awkward, right? So I think they don't want to give out a benefit of more than 7 points. I think that what's-his-name in Mercs is also only 7 points, and he's worse than the Dragoon and Ret. So even if he's 8, I don't think it matters. But, like, for the most part, I think they were very hesitant to give out 8-point solos for free, when really the points stop mattering when it's a free model. And in the case of Morag and in the case of the Tharn Wolf Rider Champion, both, I think they're a little overcosted where they are now. And I think if you change so that you could get them for free in those themes, that you could probably just leave them at their point cost and not worry about it. You could also drop them down to 6 or 7. Probably 7 for Morag, 6 for the Wolf Rider Champion, and it'd probably still be okay, and then you could probably do them for free. But, you know, people aren't going to balk at much as at 1 free 7-point solo or 2 free 6-point solos as they will at 8-point free solos. Because people on the internet just hear, oh my god, you got 16 points for free right off the top. That's broken. And, like, it's not, and I don't think it would be. But there's some perception you have to worry about that I think that they have to worry about there. So that's probably why. Another good question. Do you need a caster that gives out +2 armor for skinwalkers? Not necessarily. I think skinwalkers on their own are actually going to be a little more survivable than a lot of people give credit for. Trolls is really the only faction. You hear people talk about the hardier infantry is being played, and a lot of what they mean by that, and this goes to Tanith being a potentially great caster for some of us, but a lot of what they mean by that is that they're more survivable single wound models for the most part, right? Or they're cavalry we're talking about. So you see the cavalry, and now with cavalry having 5 wounds and most medium-based infantry having 5 wounds, they're similarly survivable, at least meant, like perceived that way. Skinwalkers have 8 wounds and heal themselves, so it really just depends on what the opponent brought as like an answer to that. They're only armor 16 at range, so I think no, you don't. But I do think you need to have a plan for why you brought them. I do like them as a more survivable unit. Like, they're the most survivable. In this theme, they're going to be a more survivable than your Wolves of Orboros. So, like, with Tanith, she doesn't buff any of those things for them. But I like them there because the armor 18, once they're stuck in, is going to still be decently difficult to deal with. I think Morvana 1, Chromac 1, Baldur 1, and the arm buff that I'm forgetting... Maybe that was it. Baldur 2, sort of. Occultation on Kaya 1, I sort of breezed past her, but Occultation on Kaya 1 would be compelling with them as well. So basically anything that you can use to sort of help deliver them and get them into melee is going to be great. And then if you have +2 more armor once they are in melee, that's going to be even better, because now you're talking about armor 20 in melee with healing. And another thing you can do is put like shifting stones behind them and keep healing them even more. And it's even easier now that the stone can be 2 inches away. Yeah, Stone Skin on Baldur 1. I thought I mentioned him, but yes, Stone Skin's another good benefit, especially once they're really stuck in there. Or things like with Morvana 2, where you just really need to focus on keeping one of them alive, and then you bring the whole unit back, and now they are going to be in melee, and you are going to have to deal with them. So Morvana 2 is a very interesting caster with them, for the same reasons she was in Mark II. And the only thing that's really changed for them that's hugely beneficial is you can actually bring 2 of the command attachments, which was one of the things. If you could do that in Mark II, if there was some way to bring 2 command attachments with them back then, you would have seen 2 units with her all the time, because they're that good. So is it necessary? No, but have a plan. If you can give them stealth, if you can give them the ability to come back, if you can, even things that like bump up their defense enough would be good. One thing to keep in mind with them, I'll have an episode on them sometime down the road, but they don't have Pathfinder all the time. They have Relentless Charge, because I think it had to do with keeping a line that said Relentless from the one model to the other, so they're like, oh, well, this would make sense for them, and I think they should probably just have Pathfinder all the time, but do keep in mind that you are going to have to deal with terrain with them a little bit more, so don't try to hide them behind walls or anything, or, except for with Baldur 2's wall, but, yeah. And then we can go into, like, some wish listing speculation. For me, I would like to see, I think this is a theme that has a lot of potential. I think one of the things it really needs is some more solos. I would love to see a Skinwalker solo. I think would be sweet. I would love to see maybe like a different attachment, or maybe the solo does this, where they get like a controlled warping thing, or maybe like a lesser version of it, depending. So in the same way that like the Feral and the Stalker and all the Warpwolves have they pick each turn sort of like which stat or which ability that they gain. I would love to see Skinwalkers get something like that, or a Skinwalker solo, or like leadership on a Skinwalker solo, or anything like that. I think that'd be really cool. I would like to see. This one's sort of weird. I feel sort of I could really see this being something where there's a theme around it, because I think there's different probably like packets of Wolves of Orboros all over the place, and I know in the fluff they've really focused on like I've seen like the Frost Wolves. We saw that in the Company of Iron, but there's like fluff behind that being a thing. And I think I really like the cold theme of stuff a lot of times. So I think it'd be pretty cool if that kind of became a thing. And I could see them getting like maybe some sort of inherent synergy with things like winter arguses, or maybe there's like winter warp wolves. That'd be really cool. And so like you get these war beasts that go in the theme, and then like they synergize. Like I've always thought one of the things that we've been missing is like we sort of up until now have been built on being this faction that's all about our battle group, and like to really solve problems we need a battle group. And if you look at lists that have been built for Circle for all eternity, it's pretty much been like infantry solves the other infantry. You sort of use them to help you solve the other problems sometimes, especially if you have a buff. And then like, but like when you really want to solve a problem, you bring your battle group, right? Like you can kind of see that trend, and that trend hasn't stopped, right? Bones of Orboros, Call the Wild are probably still the two most like move to themes for people, because we see our battle group as a big deal. So I think it would be really, really awesome to see like, you know, us get ways to sort of make this like a combined, what do I want to say? Like sort of a combined battle group infantry focus, right? So something like there's a solo in Trollbloods that I forget the official name of the ability, but people just call it Troll Gang, right? Where the infantry models get +2 damage, get gang fighter, or whatever you want to call it, if they're melee with the same thing as something in the battle group, right? Or you know, maybe there'd be new beasts or something that have effects that specifically say like other, you know, sort of this notion like the ganging up aspect, right? Like there's a lot in this theme where you can see there's gang on the Skinwalkers, you see the gang fighter on the Werewolves. You know, the idea of, if you look at wolves in the wild, right? Like one of the things that they do is they hunt as a pack, right? Like that's the name of this theme is you know, the Wild Hunt. It's about a hunting pack. And so I think that sort of some synergies like that would be really cool to see with this theme down the road. You know, to that end, I don't know necessarily exactly what that looks like. I think a Wolf of Orboros solo would be cool. I think some support solos would be cool. I think like focusing it in that like Frost Wolf sort of idea, that would be cool, because it would give us like it's sort of like taking the same note that Northkin has taken, but so what, right? Like it gives us another way to explore a totally different area for Circle. It gives us I forget his name. Tanith's story sort of takes place up in the north in the Kadoran land, and then her man, I'm blanking on his name. It's the warlock that trained her, and I'm forgetting his name in the fluff. But God, this is gonna really bug me. It's something about knight. He has knight in his title. I don't think I have any of the fluff here. Anyway, if anybody in the chat can come up with his name, that would be fantastic, because it just drives me nuts. I don't have to look later. But anyways, he is also mentioned in that fluff about the Frostwolves, and like he's obviously in that area of the land, and I think that would all be a really cool fluffy tie-in. And maybe they're setting that up, maybe they're not. I don't know. I think that seems, if you like look at how they're dressed, I think that feels more likely than like a desert focused theme. Even though I think it would be really cool to see Mosar get some desert stuff, I think it'd be cool to get like sea druids at some point and things like that. With this one, I sort of see that frost thing as being pretty cool. We already have the winter Argus. I think you could expand on that a little bit more. There's an ice Argus, like there's a winter troll, and you know, like that'd be cool. Maybe there's more ways to use cold with them, because that's sort of, you know, we have the lightning already in some places, and now we're getting fire a little bit. It'd be cool to expand on that a little bit. That's sort of a faction wish list thing. So specific here, I mean, anything that sort of Wolves of Orboros getting Gang Fighter. I think that would have to be from like a solo or something. I'd love to see more. The Reef Hunter has Weapon Master. Some more solos that can kind of hit hard would be cool. Pardon me, Grail would absolutely love that. Since he has Storm Rager. There could be more like Grail-esque guys with the 2 swords or something. You could do a lot of different things with it, right? And I think I think the obvious things are like the Skinwalker solo and maybe Reeves' character, Wolves of Orboros solo, maybe you could we already have a lot of cavalry. You could do Wolves of Orboros cavalry, I suppose. But the unit types we have already cover a pretty wide variety, so that's why I'm sort of like, well, I don't really know where we go from here, and that's where I think it'd be neat to get some stuff that covered a bunch of different directions. So, anyways, we're hitting Argus foot. Yeah, Lesser Warlock would be pretty cool. I've wanted one of those, generically speaking, for a little bit anyways. And yeah, that could be a pretty cool interaction. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, that'd be real cool. Anyway, we're now kind of spiraling out of control. So, but definitely, I would like to see the Frostwolf theme, just to sort of wrap up my thoughts on wish listing, if you will. But the Frostwolf theme would be cool. The Skinwalker, the controlled warping thing would be cool. I think even going as far as having like war beasts that are specific to it, I think that'd be pretty cool. It'd be different. So yeah. And then in general on Wolfsworn, just to wrap it up, I do think it's sort of I haven't looked at this theme personally as hard, and I don't know if that's due to the lack of options. I don't know if that's because I don't feel like it solves as many problems. I really like the werewolf interaction with it and the ambush from the Wolves of Orboros, and then there's some of the other obvious interactions as well. I may start doing some testing with it here shortly-ish. I may not. It really depends. Mostly because Adepticon for me is going to be the next like major event that I'm going to be playing at, and the list I'm playing right now that I plan to take to ATC, I don't really see changing up much with between now and then. So then that just leaves champions. I could see playing this with Tanith is a possibility, but it will necessitate, if I do that I get I'm gonna need to get a unit of Skinwalkers and a unit of Wolves of Orboros painted probably, and rearrange my bag to actually carry them. And that's only about 3 months, and Griffin's Roost can get pretty backed up. She's already doing a lot of work for me for ATC. So unrelated, I see a comment about Kruger 2 in the Stone theme, Wardens being strong. Yeah, I agree. I've been playing that myself, actually. So not related to this chat. I may have another. I may do another Guerrilla video. Like I've been doing, just sort of like go through my feelings on that list. So. Anyways, like I said, we're a little over an hour now. So thanks for tuning in. This was the last of our deep dives in the theme. I'm going to keep. Content's probably going to keep coming out sort of sporadically like I've been doing it this week. Great participation in the chat today. I think there's about 5 or 6 of you in there, so that's fantastic. But the videos are going to keep sort of just popping up as I have something to talk about. I'm hoping some of them are actually just going to be shorter, more digestible bits. Like some of those model units I said that I still need to talk about, I'd like to get 10 to 15 minutes on those and sort of cap it there. So I'm going to try to focus on being more concise for some of these things. But anyways, as always, thank you for watching. Big thanks to Griffin's Roost Painting. As always, check it out. griffinsroost.com or griffinsroostpainting.com and Griffin's Roost Painting on Facebook. Yes, the earlier time is great for those of you in Europe. I'm sure it's about 9-ish, depending in England, and it's probably really late in Poland. Yeah, we'll see if I can go earlier. Sometimes I'm going to. I have some time off next week, so if I do any shows there, they could be whenever, really. Anyways, thank you all. Look forward to getting some more episodes out soon, and happy holidays if I don't see anybody before then. And yeah, it'll be great. Thanks for watching.